The wind swept across the plains like a restless spirit, kicking up dry dust that clung to the windows of the widow's shack. The boards creaked with every gust, and inside, the air smelled faintly of smoke from a dying fire. A woman, pale with exhaustion and hollow from hunger, knelt on the dirt floor with her little boy pressed tightly against her chest. She rocked him back and forth as though the motion alone could soothe away the reality pressing down on her. The child buried his face in her thin dress, too young to understand everything but old enough to feel the fear that gripped his mother's heart. In the doorway stood the landlord, a man whose presence always seemed to darken any room he entered. His boots thudded against the fragile wood, leaving prints in the dust. His face was as hard as the cracked earth outside, his eyes small and merciless. "You know what was promised," he said, his voice cutting like a whip. "You've had months. No payment has come. No work done, and debts don't vanish just because you shed tears." The widow's fingers trembled as she clutched her child tighter. She could feel his tiny heart thudding against her ribs, fast and frightened. "Please," she whispered at first, then louder, her voice breaking into a plea. "Please don't take my child away. He's all I have left. Please, I'll do anything. I'll work, I'll beg, I'll—" Her words tangled with sobs until she could hardly speak. The landlord's lips pressed into a thin, cruel line. He shifted his weight, clearly unmoved by her desperation. "You had your chance," he said coldly. "I've got buyers who'll pay for an extra hand to tend cattle, feed pigs, clean barns. A boy strong enough for that." He cast his gaze to the child, who shivered in his mother's arms. "Better than starving here with you." The widow cried out, a sound that shook like a wounded bird. She pressed her face into her son's hair and held him so tightly he whimpered. Her body curved around him like a shield. Though her frail frame was no match for the greed of the man towering above them, the room was thick with despair, the kind that clings to the lungs and makes it hard to breathe. And then came the sound, low, steady, deliberate. Spurs against the hard-packed earth outside, a man's boots striking the ground in a rhythm that commanded silence. The landlord's words stuttered into nothing, as both he and the widow turned toward the sound. From the shadows beyond the doorway, a tall figure appeared. A broad-brimmed hat shielded his face from the fading light, but his presence filled the room with a weight more powerful than words. His shoulders were wide, his steps unhurried, and every line of his frame carried the quiet authority of someone who did not need to raise his voice to be heard. The widow's breath caught. She knew of him, as everyone in the county did. The rancher who lived beyond the river, who kept to himself, who spoke less than most men, but whose silence carried more string.